What up, boys? It's Gaz, and welcome to another Warframe video. Do another weapon revisit today, and I actually don't think I have an official video on this one from like years ago, but this is one of my OG weapons for using with Umbra Garuda back in the day. It's the Hystrix. This is actually Korra's signature weapon. Did you know that Korra had signature weapons? You probably didn't because you were usually just using Korra's Whip Claw, but yeah, she has some signature dual swords, which are the dual carries, and a signature pistol, the Hystrix. This thing honestly was probably a little bit ahead of its time. It had some unique mechanics to it, which are, they're nichely useful, but not extremely useful nowadays, especially with all the AoE stuff we got going on. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you hit that like button on the video. Make sure you're subbed to the channel as we continue to grow the channel going forward. Got daily Warframe video uploads on this channel and all this kind of stuff. We go into great detail, obviously. All right, so this is the Hystrix. Like I said, it is a pistol weapon, and I'm going to try not to make any comparisons to the new core, but just saying, you could just use a new core instead of this, all right? With that being said, we're not going to focus on the new core at all for the rest of the video. So we've got 24% critical chance and 2.2 multiplier with a 7 fire rate and a 16 magazine. Also 1.7 reload and 10% status. So before you even go to the damage types, you're going to be reloading this thing a lot, and it does not have great stash chance, but it's workable stash chance and decent crit stats. Okay, so you'll be reloading a lot. That is part of this weapon, is reloading a lot. It has a unique gimmick of it can switch between the 4 base elementals, fire, ice, poison, and electricity, and it will do a guaranteed proc with whatever element you cycle between when you hit the enemy with it. And the base damage is mostly basically all puncture, and there's a tiny little bit of slash and tiny little bit of impact. So yeah, you'll be proccing a lot of puncture over you basically never see slash procs from this thing, is what I'm trying to say. So as you can see right here in the bottom right corner, it's got the poison quill activated. So if we shoot an enemy, it's going to do a guaranteed toxin proc on them. And of course, toxin procs and like all the damage over time procs in this game can stack on top of each other. So there's one bullet. Of course, this guy has a lot of armor, so the toxin damage is reduced by armor. But you can just shoot a bunch on him, and they're going to stack up. As you can see, he's got like 34 toxin procs on him, and that's kind of okay. The multi-shot, of course, is going to give you more toxin procs, so a multi-shot riven on this thing will be really good if you're trying to focus on toxin procs, electric procs, etc., etc. If you have a frame that can group the enemies together, something like the electric quill might be useful to you. But then you look at the damage, and you're like, oh wait, it's not very good, especially against bombards. I believe electric has a bad multiplier against bombards. So, yeah, if you had a grouping tool, maybe the electric could be useful to you, but electric damage, it could use a buff, honestly. That's going to be part of this video as well, is just talking about how some of the base elementals maybe could use some buffs. Stacking up a bunch of cold procs does basically nothing. It makes them really slow. That can be good against Demolus and maybe some bosses. But yeah, the cold quill is definitely the worst one, because it has no actual additional damage component to it. The fire quills can actually stack up some damage pretty well here. As you can see, it did about 10,000 damage from nearly a full magazine. This is with a full build, although this is with this meat a crit off, to be fair. So, yeah, heat procs will reduce armor, and the damage stacks up to a big tick. And, it's pretty nice. So, one of the main problems this weapon has is, first off, it's single target. Like, you can put punch through on here, I guess, but it's single target, and you're reloading a lot. So if you have a Riven with like negative reload speed like I do, that's a bad negative for this thing. But as you can see, the stats are very high. 4 dots on the disposition. We've got 338% damage and 208% crit chance. This thing can, not reliably orange crit, but it will orange crit a lot if you have a crit chance Riven. But I'd say multi-shot's better than damage, of course. We'll show the Riven build in a little bit. Here's what I'm going to recommend to you guys. So we've got 2 dual stat elementals to bump that stash chance up to 22%. We've got multi-shot and crit mods, just, standard on basically most pistols, and primed quick draw to make it reload faster. Because I said, you will be reloading a lot. You could use eject magazine. There's not really many good Exilus mods, unfortunately. Steady hands is not going to... I wish, what this should do is make it more accurate at range, but what this does is reduces visual recoil, as far as I can tell. So this thing has a little bit of an accuracy issue at range, like I just said, and this is not going to really shore that up at all. You could potentially run lethal momentum for... projectile flight speed, but And then the rest of the mod choices are not very good. This thing does not really have an ammo issue from what I've experienced. So yeah, viral. Of course, you could easily switch this to corrosive if you preferred. And this is not a very good condition overload procer, so don't really get that in your mind at all. Corrosive, gonna proc some stats. You could go full crit if you want to with only 90% elementals, but that's not what we're opting for on this build. I've tried like I was like messing around with it a little bit before I started recording the video. I tried like a full heat build to see if maybe like stacking up toxin and heat at the same time would be good. It didn't seem very good to me. But yeah, it still is really good with Umbra Garuda, and if you're using the Mecha set bonus, so we'll show that in the video too. Let's not go for all headshots here. This is the toxin procs. So you remove some of their armor. The toxin procs do a little bit more damage, but there's still nothing to write home about against these fully armored targets. And yeah, puncture. So it does mostly puncture damage, and honestly, like puncture is terrible. Like the damage type is okay for one of the base elementals, but it's not very. The puncture proc is what I'm trying to say is not very good. I think puncture proc should be reworked. What they currently do is reduce the enemy's damage against you and like your teammates and stuff. But when has that actually been useful? Most of the time, it's one shot or not. Or one shot your shield gate back up, that kind of stuff. That's what's going on nowadays. Damage reduction is not usually necessary in a lot of situations. So I'd say if they want to maybe make puncture procs more useful, what I've always thought would be cool is if a puncture proc would actually make it so you... basically, it creates a weak point on the enemy. So let's say I proc a bunch of puncture on this guy. We're not getting any puncture procs, to be fair. And like I've shot his arm a bunch. That makes his arm like his armor is gone in his arm, or like that becomes a weak point. Like he's taken so much pain in his arm. From then on, when I shoot his arm, it does additional damage. So like basically, it creates weak points just like Banshees too. That's what I've always thought this would be a nice way to treat puncture damage. That would make it not even like it wouldn't even like overtake slash, but it would be like something to use in addition to slash. And that would make puncture weapons potentially good for buffing damage, which, the way I look at it, if the status damage is not going to buff weapon damage, at least in our current sandbox, it's not very useful. Of course, we could go on. I'm going to actually probably make a full video about status procs and how they could get buffed. I've always thought magnetic should pull enemies in together. That would be really nice. But, you know, we'll see if it ever ends up happening. They're supposed to be doing a status buff eventually here. As you can see, those electric procs pretty good against unarmored targets, but you know you could just use melee and like destroy them easily. So, you know, the Hystrix very single target. Let's show what I want to show with Garuda. This is from a previous video, like actually like 1 or 2 years ago. So keep that in mind. This has been a thing you could do for a long time. It's going to be the Garuda Mecha set bonus combo with the Hystrix. Of course, you can use other weapons too. 100 munitions will work just fine with this. But you're going to want the full mecha set bonus to make the dog marking stuff a lot quicker. And it's going to mark an enemy within 12 or 15, whatever. It marks an enemy every like 12 seconds, okay? You're going to want to use the Gubra, or you could use the Predacite technically. And you hit them with your 4 from Garuda, and you hit them with the Hystrix, and they get procced up. Like I said, 100 munitions weapons will also work with this, and they will just one-shot everything in the area. This will also work with heat procs as well. So these corpus probably won't work as well, but we can just try it out anyway. Kind of hard to see the dog icon as well. There, he's marked. Okay. You can see it didn't kill everything, but they spawned a bunch of drones, to be fair. So those guys are all dead. It looks more impressive against bombards. Let's do that instead. Then we'll get into the gameplay. I think the gameplay is very appropriate for how I feel about this weapon. It's very good, but it's single target. And by the time you're actually starting to shoot at the enemies, if you have a full squad of teammates, those enemies are probably already dead by the time you're shooting at them. That is honestly how I feel about this thing. So let's look for the dog icon. It's not very easy to see. That's one of the things I think should definitely get buffed by the mecha set bonus, is make the little dog icon easier to see. Alright, he is dead, and everyone else is dead. So, you can do that, but, like I said, Garuda can do that with other weapons as well. So let's just use the Riven build real quick here. Oh, that was the Riven build. Oh, you know, there you go. So 119% crit chance, and a big chunk of extra damage. That's going to make some pretty juicy toxin procs with the Toxin Quill. Let's get some more text back in here. You know, no, 20 Eximus is just going to be too many ice bubbles. Let's do something else. I really feel like this is a simulacrum weapon, personally. That's my honest opinion on it. And in mission, it's just too slow. Pretty good toxin procs there. Those guys are all... Okay, well, dog bonus too good, apparently. All right. Well, let's get in the mission. Also look at that 1200% extra armor. God, the mecha set bonus build is so good. Especially in Garuda. get so much extra armor. Armor is usually not that great, to be honest. But if you have that much extra, like it's nearly like 90% something damage reduction to your health. And if you're constantly healing from Karutas too, it's not exactly endurance viable, but you're basically a god in low level missions and like normal content, sortie content. So, all right, before my teammates can spawn in, here I am killing a couple enemies. I did remember that melee is just better than this about one enemy in, so keep that in mind. And then here we go. So, yep, just gotta get that combo multiplier up and not use the Hystrix. But, you know, if this Grendel doesn't eat all the enemies, maybe I can kill them with the Toxin Quills. So there you go. There's the Toxin. This is the Steel Path, by the way. This is the Steel Path. It can kill the Steel Path. But, you know, melee is going to be a lot faster. And only use this if you really are just like, you know, you feel the need to use a gun in the Steel Path, which I don't think many people are really having that feeling nowadays. No, I want to. I really do feel like we're going to get a gun rebalance soon here, where maybe guns will, like, something I've heard a lot of people suggesting, I kind of do like this idea, is reduce the ammo of primaries, but make primaries do like 5 times the amount of damage they currently do. Make primaries actually feel like something you could run out of ammo for easily, and they actually feel like your primary source of damage. And keep melee good. Keep melee maybe just as good as it is. And secondaries are a backup weapon. Maybe even for the condition overload proc as well. Because primaries don't really have a place in the game right now, it feels like. Unless you're just like Brahma spamming through the mission to make it fast. You could use that with a secondary, though, to be fair. Because secondaries have basically just as much damage a lot of the time. So yeah, as you can see in the mission, I've basically given up on using the Hystrix at this point just because it's single target and slow, and the game is too fast for that kind of thing nowadays. It'd basically be like me running through this mission with the Rubico Prime and like one-shotting every enemy in the head. But instead of one-shotting, I'm using basically half a magazine to kill these guys. So, you know, would I recommend this weapon to you guys? I'd say yes. It has the potential to be a very good single target normal missions kind of weapon if we do get some gun buffs in the future. It's not like it really needs a buff to kill these enemies too. It is destroying them when I do actually use it. But that reload speed is a little bit annoying. It's MR7 to be fair. But yeah, some other things that also get buffed. I think that honestly, if you get the 10 procs of cold, it should fully freeze the enemy. If you've seen Gauss's his third ability, Thermal Sunder, fully freeze an enemy, that effect is already in the game. And no one is really utilizing cold damage right now, unless you're, like, slowing down a Demolist for some reason. Has anybody else used cold besides, like, Prophet Taker, like, required cold damage to break his shield? It is an extremely underutilized base elemental, and I feel like Toxin and Heat are heavily utilized currently. And Electric, honestly, I think Electric just needs a range buff. If Electric got, like, a double or triple range buff, I'd be fine with it. That's not even talking about how some of the other procs could definitely use some changes as well. I'm looking at blast damage and a couple other ones as well. So that is the Hystrix, guys. Hopefully you found it a fun video, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for all the support, and take it easy, guys. Peace.